You know what? I never actually talked about why I took so much time off from making these videos, what I was doing, what games I played when I was gone and all that jazz. One of those things was, I was getting a little overwhelmed in my personal life and I needed to sort of save some of my mental energy and to make sure that, I didn't overload my brain, wanted to make sure that, mental health is an important thing. And the other thing was this game. Mummified Tony back here again with another game review. This week we're taking a look at Odd Realm by Unknown Origin Games. This game is an absolute time sink. I'm almost glad that itch doesn't track how much time I've spent playing a game, because I think I've dropped almost 100 hours in the first month of playing this game alone. In this game, you manage a group of traveling villagers. I always pick to start as the humans, but there's another race of skeleton people available, and there are 2 more races coming in the future. Again, this game is in beta, so some things aren't exactly polished all the way. You're given a randomly generated overworld, and you can pick a space to farm and mine and cultivate and call your own. This space is sort of like a tinier square in the greater overworld, but still a pretty big plot of land for you to actually work in. The game gives you a wide biome of a random world to choose from. Coastal places, inland plains, forests, mountains, deserts, islands. The areas also vary in difficulty as well, that you can kind of choose and pick how you want to go through. It's not just something that they just spring on you all of a sudden being like, where are all these bad guys coming from? They warn you ahead of time so you can decide how intense of a game you want it to be. I always pick the, easy ones because, I'm like that. And then also on top of that, when you start your village, you're able to pick what starting items and settlers you always want with. I always pick the stock beginning package that sort of gets you going and is everything that you essentially will need moving forward. Once you find where you want to start, you're able to start turning your land into whatever you want. Gather flowers and other wild foods, harvest plant fibers, chop down trees, gather river water, and mine out important resources. This game is all top-down RTS style camera movements with one difference. The scroll typically is reserved for zooming in and out, but in this game it's used to select sort of what layer you're looking at. The game you can move around in full 3D, but the entire visuals that you get to look at are all 2D. So the whole world is chopped into layers like an MRI. You can mine out a whole mountain and just take it right off the top layer by layer, or you can decide to mine into that mountain and open up branching rooms inside of it, kind of like the cross section of what you see from an ant colony. On the mini map, it gives you sort of a depth gauge to where you are in the world. Typically the game has its sea level somewhere around level 44 or something. The absolute highest level you can build on is the 63rd layer, but people can walk around on the 64th layer. I've never gone all the way down to the bottom. I think I've gone as low as maybe like 20-ish or something. Some people might look at this and be like, big deal, Minecraft has 128 layers, this game isn't that big. But I think that's super not relevant. Then why did you type it in, Tony? Oh, okay, let me explain. The game sort of feels a lot bigger and the blocks have more weight in the economy of this game, both literally in shops and such, but also in what it means in the mining and exploration. It sort of feels like as if the blocks in Minecraft were twice as big and they meant twice as much. This feels sort of like a football simulator of Minecraft, as if, running a server for Minecraft was a game all on its own. Anyway, enough comparisons to Minecraft. There's a production queue that you can use to make sure that whoever is skilled in making that item always has something to do and you never run out. And for me, that was always glass panels. I never had enough sand. Pro strat, in the production window, some items when your settlers craft them make just one item. Examples are pickaxes, swords, armor, some bits of clothes, and some particular types of food. And other items might make multiple items when crafted. Like coal when crafted always makes 5. Some leathers will always make 3, or purified water makes 5. So if you set the number to the production number they make, then if they ever drop below the minimum that is craftable, you know the chances are that something else will need this. And chances are that a thing will never need more than the minimum that is made when crafting. And if there is something that does that, or I know that I'm going to be burning through that one item, i.e. sand, then just set the thing to 10. And then I never have to worry about running out, right? You'd think. This obviously isn't the best thing to do for high ticket items or things that use more rare materials like gold, copper, or void shards. If you know that you're you're going to be building a lot of something, set your queue for a beefy number and also set your well water to 100. The game will have you eventually controlling a lot of settlers, and they can all be set to 9 or something classes. I don't know how many. I was a baby don't hurt me game player who only needed to worry about maybe like 5 classes. The other 4 are void magic or some other junk I didn't want to fuss with. And after you build homes for these settlers, they're going to start making kids, and after they turn 18, they're going to need to be assigned a job, and then others die and they drop materials that they were wearing or working on. There are settlers that come and join you who are desperate for food. There are kids who are runaways from slavers that join your settlement. There are a lot of coming and going with these people, and keeping track of who's got what items, who has the crown that gives you 4 times energy so you don't have to sleep more often, who's got the +10 sword, who's got the special armor. It's all a lot to keep track of and sort. It can be done, but there are some things that actually are best left to automation. And that's what's great about this game, is that it lets you assign a uniform for each profession and then to different priorities to each uniform as well. So if you need your stonemasons to obviously have an outfit that focuses stonework and your farmers to have a different uniform that obviously focuses on farming, then they can have 2 different outfits. But then if you have different items that might not be queued up to make right away, like you don't have enough steel to make a steel hatchet, but you definitely have enough to make copper hatchets. You can set it up that way that it's prioritizing. Once you have the steel items, they'll automatically go and equip the steel items. But if all you have for right now is brass, you can set a secondary primary to focus the brass items. It's a super cool way that you don't have to go back and forth every time you have a new settler in the game. The main jobs that these settlers are going to be doing, at least at first, is mining, gathering water, harvesting food or materials, or just clearing out whole sections of the map, so that way it's nothing but fresh dirt under the grass. All the jobs and building commands can be set to 3 different levels of priority. So that way, if you, let's say, want some miners to work their way down strip mining a mountain, okay, well then you can set the peak level to be cleared out at the highest yellow command, set the next layer after that to a green priority, and then after that, it can be the regular 3rd priority. This is a great way of making sure that you can still reach the level you are mining and not worrying about cutting out the legs from under where you were meant to dig. Oh, and a quick note, nothing in this world actually necessarily cares about gravity. You could technically clear out an entire slice of a mountain's layer and just completely take it out, so that way there's nothing connecting the floor below it from the floor above it, and the mountain will just stay exactly where it is. You don't have to worry about the whole thing falling down one level. Though that actually would introduce another interesting layer of the survival side of things. Best to leave it alone for now. When you first start in a new world, you're going to want to start a farm right away. Doesn't have to be permanent, just anywhere that's a 10 by 10 square of clear grass. Obviously, it needs to be grass and nothing else. You can't plant food on stone or sand. Well, actually, I never ran into a lot of sand, so actually, I don't know if that part is true. Food was a big problem that I was running into when I was starting to play this game. Settlers would be eating the food and I wouldn't be paying attention to growing new food, and then eventually they'd all start dying off. Food takes a super long time to ripen, so it's better to start it off early and have a surplus than to wait until your settlers are suddenly hungry and hoping you can make it grow in time. A lot of the start of the game for me was the same thing every playthrough. Set the trees to be cleared out, then harvest everything, gather all the water, clear and remove everything out on basic priority, and then set the queues to the minimum number made when crafting. And then just let the settlers fly. I always made sure that there was water being collected because pro strat, you can gather water non-stop until the first merchant shows up, and then you can sell all your water and get a good chunk of change back for it. This can jumpstart you to bring extra things you might want into the future. There's nothing worse than seeing that D20 plus 100 sword at the beginning and not being able to buy it when it comes by. And then the next merchant might not even show up for another 3 hours of real playtime. And then by the time they show up, they might not even have it. So when the first merchant does show up, you're going to want to buy all the food they have. And if you can, some seeds as well for the food that you don't have yet. This is going to be a best way to grow your variety of food that you can grow and also get blueprints. You obviously can't make roasted mushroom stew if you can't grow any mushrooms. So make sure that you are diversifying your seeds as much as possible. After that first day's worth of setup, you might as well just start setting the speed to max speed and watch your settlers do their thing. In my early games, I would focus on mining out a strip of land all at one level and fill the 10 square wide section with a farm. I would try to grow that strip all the way down to the bottom of the map and then focus on just making the farm as big as possible, taking up a 10 by 128 or whatever the entire size of the map is. I did this for a while, but I quickly learned that the strip wasn't going to be enough to feed the size of the village that I will eventually actually grow too. So it got to the point where I made a whole level by itself for a farm. I would take the 60th layer, make that whole layer nothing but dirt walls, and then plant everything on the 61st layer, then some posts at about rows 1, 12, 22, and so on, and then have them spaced out roughly 10 squares apart. And then on the 62nd layer, I would make one huge greenhouse roof. Because what they don't tell you in the early game is that when the snow comes in winter and it builds up, it destroys anything in that square and it takes away the room that you've assigned to that square. So I'd make a huge greenhouse so that way food production can last all year long, or tried. That's going to lead me into my main gripe about this game, and one that's halted my progress to always some hard stopping point in the game. There's a point where you could be playing this game for 6, 8, 10, 12 hours on a run, and then suddenly the game just gets bogged down with all the items that are on screen. The map gets cluttered up with all the logs and chunks of stone, the food, items, armor, everything. There is a way of taking all this stuff and stuffing it in containers, but the rate at which you gain things to being able to stuff them in is just way out of bounds. It got to a point where if I wanted to store all of the stuff, I would need to have a whole layer dedicated to just storage alone. And this is at the point where I already have a layer for the farm, housing, and shops, and water. So having to have rows and rows of cabinets that just house all of this junk is just so disheartening to have to give up on a save because my computer can't handle the stuff going on in this game. At least I think that's the reason. After my 3rd or 4th winter in the game, it just starts to freeze and decides that it doesn't want to continue and crashes. One thing that I'm slightly annoyed with, but glad it's there, is that after you save the game for the first time, it auto saves itself at the end of every game. That's annoying because a whole day sped up to its fastest can only last about 5 minutes. And it's annoying because anytime you're trying to do something at night, all of a sudden the game's like, time to hold on, we gotta stop, save everything, and then you can get back to doing it again. And like I said, that happens every 5 minutes. I'm glad it's there rather than the alternative. This game is great. It's super low energy if you want it to be, and it's extremely nitpicky if you want it to be. I love the management aspect of this game and what's going on. I never got into Stardew Valley or really anything like that, and I can't remember my feelings or opinions when I was playing SimCity 2000 back in the day. But this game, I dove hard into. There were a lot of nights when I was playing this game where suddenly it's 4 a.m. and I should have been clocked in and ready to start my day at work 30 minutes ago. If this game was back in my high school days and finished, this would have been definitely the game my mom catches me still playing when she wakes me up to go to school the next morning. Well, I'm gonna go carve out my own place in the world under a nice big tree. Let me know if you folks played this game, what you thought of it, if this game happens to remind you of any other Settlers game, or even if it reminds you of any other team management game. Like I said, I dumped a lot of time into this game, and I started a fresh world so many times after crashing. You all do the YouTube dance, subscribe, hit the bell, comment down below on your thoughts on this review. In the meantime, this is Mummified Games. Keep digging out from under your game pile, and we'll make it out sometime. See you in the next one.